it's me again. Hey, it's me from, whatever. How's it going? I see you've shown up yet again to my broadcast. I'm just waking up. Give me like a few moments to collect myself and, get past this blood pressure issue. I'm currently white knuckling it through. How's it going? Everybody, I'm Professor Fun 101. This is The Burger with PARACONOMY Inc's Pervert Murderer and Professor Fun 101. How's everybody going? I am just sitting here trying to design my mom, and it gave me a memer mom, and now she's gone for long. Yeah, and me and Kid Rock we're just in Michigan. We're just in Michigan. Everybody's always been just from Michigan. Whee! All right, so check out Professor Fun 101. Yeah, we're just rocking out here with some rebels. Oh no, you're a real rebel, you're a real American hero. Wee! There you go. Yeah, wee! It's way better. Everybody, go ahead. Wee! Yeah! Wee! Don't look at those words. Wee! Just listen to them. Wee! See. I see. I'm just saying wee. But that's not what it's thinking up here. But, like, you guys are fine. None of that is real. That's just up in my head. Why would it be outside of my head? Other than with my words. Aliens. That's right. Aliens! They're telling you to protect the lollies. Protect the paddy wagons. Everybody protect the lollies. They're all police. They should protect they're there to serve. And protect exactly. What else would a lolly be here for? Is to preserve and produce. I mean, preserve and swim, safeguard life protection. I like, you know what? That's what lolly life means. I saw it on the back of some Michigander's car. It said lolly life, and just driving around like a pervert. My goodness, or a murderer, or just a martyr parrot. Yeah, whatever it was, it might have been a martyr parroter. Yeah. I've heard of those things. A martyr parroter? Yeah, I'm a parrot perjury for murderer. It's to help people in court. And they've patent pending. They've used it against a real life pervert murderer before. What? Yes, in real life, they've actually used this parrot pervert murderer, and it makes a perfect school. It makes the best school. And it makes the greatest country ever again. High five. Hitler, whoa, take that Hitlerism back. Hitler belongs to the schools. Oh, that's right, to the Nazarenes out in that way. Yeah, the Nazarenes and the Protestants are fighting the evangelicals to get the Nazis out of the Protestant Anglo-Saxon hands of, what are they called? Apocalypsopalian. They're Apocalypsopalian dialectical Romanian Cossack monk post-mortem cult within the Christianity sect. Actually, in the 16th century, the Great Schism in Christianity, when the dialectical church moved away from the Dead Sea Scrolls, clear the room, these things would basically reappear and appear in the Salsmassaria or whatever, the Pandagala Poggia or whatever the heck that thing is supposed to be as a mandala, and it would freak people out like a demon, but it's actually like this angelic, and sometimes what the church has also disclosed is a very alien phenomenon, and which is something. Let's go ahead and segue to our we don't have it yet. A logo, yeah. So that thing's there. It's that's real, yeah, and that's also a big part of the phenomenon. It's called Ezekiel's vision, and it's in Ezekiel's in the Old Testament in the Bible. And it's like reoccurrence like all throughout Hinduism and like a lot. And then like it also reoccurs like a lot in Buddhism and stuff like that. So in my Christian Buddhist roots and my anthropological sort of soul finding, something I don't think a lot of people realized I was picking up. Like my dad was kind of knowing, but he also didn't think I would care. But I finished Food of the Gods like a long time ago in that sense, and I pull from it very, very frequently. And Terrence McKenna writes a lot, and Dennis McKenna and like Timothy Leary also kind of add up with Aldous Huxley on how they double up on this weird like instance of levitation, but it's at the cost of their like enigmatic freedom sometimes, and you end up in this slavery construct within the psychedelic community. So it's funny how it happens naturally on our planet, and the ways that people end up kind of having this edifice of basically totalitarian like demagogal sort of ingesting an ingestment kind of because it raptures your like soul in a microcosm of like echo chambering with angelical like resonance and like intensification. So instead of the echoes tapering off, they get more intense because it's the sign of the times of this wavelength theory that like a lot of anthropologists have been pulling off the sauce on, and it's able to make a bit of a portaling through and a ripping through tear through the finite curve, which is something that we pride ourselves in our capabilities here at PARACONOMY INC. And also we have tapped into and created new barreling into a cosmic didactic vivisection between, I love this word, thanks for bringing it back, yeah, of this giant coalescing, yeah, it's a plug in and out, okay, but it's not, because it's an organic move in and out. Yeah, I love the business aspect of this thing, because this thing is like more like a jellyfish than it is like, right, I don't want to get too graphic, but if you look at like the tissue organs of like say the phallus, the male phallus or female at this point or whatever, and then you checked out the cutaway on the organs, and like, not to get too visceral, but like check that out, because if you ever look in the biology things of this, it always comes with this huge like freaking your capillary vessels, basically they're in the organ, basically are like expungible here, and there's like tiny little muscles like all around. So there's one meat tube, right, or a phallus has this like thing, right, and like other things are in the thing. So, right, or like think of like the veins and the corticeptal like kind of receptors in the I don't even know what I'm pulling from, but like you get what I'm talking about. Yeah, the biology on this part where you end up getting the cross section, or like, and especially in your arms and stuff, you end up with a lot of this going on. I just thought of like the wiener, because like it doesn't have any bones in it, and it's like it's easier to kind of wrap your head around how our bodies work on this kind of plumbing fluidity. Like it's very like magnesium and like iron driven kind of alchemical imbibement
or like kind of attachment that you might gain in on whatever the experience leads you in. So like I said, it's this phenomenon that like kind of pulsates and then gets like more intense. And so like I said, it's this the human body also like kind of reallocates the tension between pressure and surface area during this interaction with reality where you aren't necessarily fully in control. And you also have like the basic like force of like push pull happening on your enigmatic displacement or your chakral resonancies. So if you have this like all of a sudden rush of like trade-off and endorphins, it can basically create this like displacement on like comfort and anxiety. Excuse me, burpee here, eating a coffee. Anyways, you drink it up and like it gets it going, and like you basically end up with this displacement of like capacity, basically, where you lose out because you sacrifice your comfort and control to this like non-human species. And so this is, but that's where it can be that, or sometimes it's something else. And so like in Ezekiel, in most of the Bible, it comes up and it's this, but sometimes it's other things. And so like when you're looking at when the church decided that they were or weren't allowed to like interact with this phenomenon, they started chipping around little things as they rewrite it to make sure that that part of the section gets coded differently. And so like within those churches of the great schisms between the 16th century to the 21st modern day denominations in Christianity, and the dialectical interchangement between what we know to be true in Egypt, what we know to be true in Israel, and Babylon. In this case, the tower, more importantly, what I want to try to bring it around here to is like the Tower of Babel also had this weird phenomenon where they had these open-eyed hallucinations and visuals. Now, when I was turning 25 from 24, I spent a whole night in my backyard astral projecting with these strange demonology astral projections between this like hyper like Jim Morrison kind of thing and this more low like wild-eyed, like big pontification lens scope on like this Terence McKenna-y like afterlife, pre-life, predetermined archaic revival. This push and pull of you being in the modern day, but then also because reality is just gonna come back into you, it displaces you. So like this is a big part where a lot of things and these experiences basically give people clairvoyance and clairsentience, which is something that people have been talking about a lot lately over this whole ESP, as some like to call it, clairvoyance and telekinesis and telepathy. So like as you read through Ezekiel's vision, something I haven't done in a long time, but I can extrapolate a little bit at a time. These kind of forceps of life basically kind of give Ezekiel this like hellscape of like existence, and it's like a murderous like thresholding of like, and it's a lot longer than the ones that we have today. Weirdly, there could be some lost in translation in how long these trips or like psychedelic experiences actually were, because you could look and they're like long phantasms of people being born and dying generationally before they disappear. And so that's kind of half the sauce on the Bible and Christianity during the modern day Arab like kind of disassembling and dissecting of those parts within the Judaism and the Abrahamic turn towards the Babylonian. Now, those are very, very classic Dead Sea Scrolls, where you end up with a couple of them all throughout the coastal shorelines because the pirates were all over the place on that. So when you bring up the Greeks and the Romans, they're always like kind of having this demagogical like patronage to Mecca in a sense, but that's not where Mecca was for all of that. And because Islam and like Judaism kind of also piggyback off the Abrahamic, they also weirdly end up in and especially in Islam, it picks up a lot more on this part of the Bible, this Bible after dark. And so that's one big reason why once you start bleeding away from some of the more secular Stoicism, especially, and this is where modern day Catholicism picks up some of this spiritual phenomenon and displacement, and they kind of this is where the Catholics end up kind of getting into war a lot more than some of the other Christians, like Methodists and Baptists and stuff, because it's a call to arms, and because it's this kind of dialectical, it's almost how they formulate the Russians and the Germans and stuff like that, while maritime is basically being like settled in towards Burgundy or Normandy. Sorry, not a history buff. Yeah, you're not. But anyways, you're kind of getting there, and this is how I'm doing it. And so like that's kind of Ignore the weird phrasing here. I don't have a degree in history per se. I have a lot, but that's not one of them. So like I had to pick up on the scry. But I digress. Basically, Hasidic Jews also have this weird cleanliness, like idyllic kind of like attachment between what it does. Now, that's like basically how you interact with, and they're in the belief that it's recreatable and you can pray to God and it'll happen, which is a lot of religions. And so that's kind of how we're looking at attempting to get some of, and I'm half Polish, I'm half white, half Asian, all Blasian, yeah. JK rolling. Anyways, like yeah, they end up with this part in their religion that echoes a lot into China. So as you can see, between like the birth of Christ in Bethlehem, right? It basically has this weird like rippling effect from that part. But meanwhile, there's like stuff in Africa doing like the same displacement, and a lot of phenomenons. They have tried to sync up different histories geographically vis-a-vis timelines, and this is where very similarly I end up with a lot more of this Egyptian line of alien community that like to visit me and have been able to like open up pordelic vibes and journeys within my real lifetime as Professor Fun 101 and PARACONOMY Inc. and as Alex and Zoe or whatever the hell I've been running into with my lifestyle and my different sides to me, and finding out which ones fit best and which ones look good, and just normal Alex stuff. But like I digress. Like it is bigger and it's deeper than just throwing on a costume and being like, this is me now. It comes with this back to that word, comes with this martyrism that comes in with just living more accordingly to the reality of the mainframe, which is something that Jesus was supposed to be in the Bible or the Matrix. Right. Because it feels a lot like you're chosen and like that it just like comes out of the blue. But that's not the case. It's a phenomenon that people are able to like agree to in and out of, and it it brings up what we call today, what a lot of people are New Agers call spiritual court. So this is like a whole idea of how people will use mob law instead of like something more efficient and effective, like, I don't know, the one we have and that we're making worse. Right. But like, I digress. The police are a part of the mob law, and they also know that spiritual court is a little bit higher than material court. So when they learn and levy the bar, they level the bevel on your good deeds and your wrongdoings. They add the weight in the journey of the coalescing of what's possible on the First Amendment right. Now, this is where statutes of limitations ends up with your enigmatic freedom and this weird section in esoterica and how the Latin and dead Latin apply to post and primordium in the courts and other places, something that's extremely important and vital if you're going to utilize it in a court of law to leverage your innocence. And something that I've been researching a lot more since I've grasped a big full scope of anthropology, and it's really simple to start putting like paper to pen on the feather and the quill, because they start to create this levitation. And it's kind of funny how like some things in our constitution are very literal, and like they also have to look at how, if they're going to look at religious freedom in America, they have to write up a doctorate that kind of, if this is in and out of religion and spirituality, they have to write it in and or something. So that's where the Declaration of Independence also mimics that Ezekiel's vision phantasm here in America. But this is when George Washington was coming here in the 1400s, 1700s, right here, where like you basically end up with this whole recolonization between what's happening, and especially here in Michigan, it maybe catch you up. A lot of French tradesmen came in, and there was nothing permanent here, something they had just fled from, and they knew that they might have to reinstill it out here. Something that a lot of people look at, and it's pretty clear that the English and the French and all these things going on have this pilgrimage between that side of the world and this side of the world, where they're having to colonize and permanate. They're like going from like sticks and like twigs and feathers and leathers to like whole like permanent buildings, and like textiles get poured into the permanency, which is why like bishops and missionaries would come in and like hurt people and screw things up, because very often they were there to create tension, something that is not always talked about so clear as day in necessity in Christianity, until it's like utilized against itself for this part of like satisfaction that we finished it, we killed the giant, or we killed the evil thing, and so like that's we survived a lot of the time. So if that's a replication, if that's just a imprint on history, because as we can see, there are historical geographical like phenomenons that happen within the Bible, okay, or the Dead Sea Scrolls, or any of those religions. But at the same time, those are the only ones anybody wants to give the time of day, because if you go further down to Egypt, they're practicing some other things in the Tower of Babel, and further down to like places like the DRC and like all sorts of parts. Once you start getting past the deserty lands, it starts to look a lot more fleshed out, because you start understanding why the pyramids were a little bit more demagogal down there, but they looked really gaudy. They had these like gaudy idols that they would like kind of be like, you can't worship these things, and it comes up in the Bible a lot. And like that's kind of where you get the Persian and the like the Romans, right? 300 Romans, right? Or Greeks. Spartans, Greeks, right? Okay. Brain fart. But like, as you see, there's this Persian influence here, and a lot of that ends up coming up from the Middle East, where you end up with a lot of Asians and stuff like that. But then you end up with like this slave trade coming in through India. So that's like a huge reason why like it still existed, and Egypt having Moses freeing the slaves and the Jews, the Hebrews at the time, right? And that was just common. That wasn't the first time. But because it was like one of the first recorded times, they were able to part a sea that ended up filling in somewhere else miraculously. It just bam, and this is the way of how the phantasm is of design within this push and pull and give and take in unlocking things like plagues or like miracles with weather and like alchemical processes. It's one huge reason why we don't have every answer at the end of Christianity and just feed it to you, because you're supposed to kind of have the freedom to not have to deal with it. Somebody already took care of that. And so like, because it's been written into our Constitution and it mirrors enough of this vision and this experience, we're looking at the possibilities in science and physics and the effects of how this could create echo chambering on what we know to be possible on the finite curve. Now, if aliens are coming through PARACONOMY Inc.'s portaling through the finite curve, it makes enough clear of a sense that whatever I've been able to achieve has been able to unlock some sorts of prehistoric human history, okay, and this legacy of like cosmic like kind of massiveness. This is very, very, very big, and these are very kind of intricate modals of like our own life force on this planet, of what's possible and what's still alive. So at PARACONOMY Inc., we'll be using our remote projection and astral projection and our channel to be able to do certain things like manifesting Godzillas or creating rifts and rips into people's like existences, or get hyper violent or sexual or things like with discretion, but also like, okay, the human concept is always of the id, and what's nature v nurture. These are parts of the vision, and if you're starting to understand how we interact with the vision, and that's essentially like committing and having faith that you see the longevity of your investment here. Something that happened over Ezekiel's like basically a greater lifetime on their south node, north node transferring, because by Ezekiel's vision you have this displacement with the two over and over again. It's not just a one-off. And so like, because there's this little difference in, that's not Christian God, that's not a demon, but it's also not weird, because that thing is doing the same thing that we thought it was on this planet, and it's not from this planet. And that's Ezekiel's vision. And the way they talk about the vision of this like holy angel grail wheel thing coming in from like the frickin' sun, basically, they're like, this thing came in, I was staring just at the cusp of the sun where I could see some fragmentation and detail, and it really showed up, and I died and basically came back to life with these aliens. And so like, because there's this huge open-eyed visual of a phantasm, it's easier to be able to nowadays to address this thing as its enigmatic, forceful, like overbearingness, instead of like kind of giving it less or not acknowledging it all. It's this thing that addresses you and kind of displaces you. so that you get this divine growing and maturing in society. Something that we pride ourselves here on life coaching at PARACONOMY Inc., and where we're able to utilize the likeness of other world experiences and possible experiments that have already taken place and be able to emulate the best parts. It's in order to create this a little bit of ebb and flow. Something that not everybody thought was going to be humanly possible. And as you can see, it takes some wormholing and this extrapolation here of detail within this enigmatic channel. Now, what I've utilized in my likeness is a few interesting black holes that. At Paraconomy, we were able to help finesse and dictate and re-guide our guidance system for the planet, utilizing my likeness as a Jesus proxy on top of some other hoobajoob and witchcraft that was going on early on in my life. That have to do with this, but then later on again, and then a couple more times, and then again this one time in 2022 October, throughout the whole month. And this is where I started having more of my Ezekiel's vision, even though I already had one or two, and like it's a lot, but let's say that you missed it and you didn't realize that I'd already achieved whatever part, and you made me rerun and reroute a whole legacy of like extrapolation towards like in and out of like my soul searching and my soul displacement and enchambernment, where it cleanses my soul in a sense, and it's this clarity, it's this like, if you've ever had psychedelics, you kind of understand this part where it feels like it's taking you through the wormhole and you end up with this full on experience, and you're like up and down, and there's ebb and flow and tension, and you're pulled and manipulated, you're dripping, and yeah, you end up with like all these different like forms that the human like experience can take. And that's sort of how one thing led to another, and I wound up with it on Paraconomy so heavily yet again, because this is a part of the enigmatic surprise. I'm Jesus, and it's time to look at why Christmas, whether or not we were skeptical, ended up making Jesus, because we had faith. So like in that sense, everybody's known this about me, and they don't like to talk about it so blasphemously. But if Jesus is a powerful alchemist through carpentry and that type of a dealio, it gives away and breaks way to the stoicism of beginner's mind, something that they really, really try to flower out in Jesus's like youth a lot of the time, but then it resurfaces later on before things start getting a little rocky, because it gives Jesus the time and the satchel to basically send off the remnants of your sacrificials and be able to free the bones and the fleshing and all of these other things to the enigmatic freedom of, a lot of the time, it's the desert. But like it's things like the Nile River. It's a lot of different like things, because actually it looks like the geography had more foliage and more plant life. So it's hard to dispute and argue about the cynicism that we've basically sped it up with in today's society, and be like, Jesus ain't real, he ain't coming again, we live in hell, right? A lot of people are really dramatic about that, and well, perhaps could be the weird cynicism, like being, slap box, I wasn't telling you the whole truth, and then like instantaneously allowed us towards the freedom of that phantasm, which is Jesus going through the rebirthing process with a whole town. Something that I've done over here at Lansing, and we've utilized the power and inertia of being able to seismically toss this displacement, and you tap into the code, and it turns the whole planet into a spaceship, more or less. So, like, you know, like, it's a working theory. They know lots of it is true, and today they've speculated on how we are able to, and people figured out later on in time that we can interdimensionally hop as organic beings and inorganic now, which is something the UAPTF and the UFO has backed on Ezekiel's vision, and has looked into the Pentagon's findings on anthropological findings on my file, let alone other people's files. And so, while you're looking into my Jesusdom, you'll also find some other weird things that allude to the fact that I actually am an alien-human hybrid. Something that is really tricky to just claim in on unless you have a little bit of the extra sauce the aliens gave you, which is what we're trying to prove. Is if I was abducted a few different times here on this planet in a few of my lifetimes, because I'm under the antithesis that I have died in the dream realm several times for several different reasons, and and my likeness is being utilized and co-opted by humanity. Something that, like, basically is very Jesus-y. So if the government was able to be like, wait, which is this Jesus story, and then figure out what mine feels like, which led to this whole expansion on the Nexium. It's this quantum tech Nexium, like, basically shaping of this portaling. It's like this mandala effect of portaling that goes from one and it fractals off and branches out to more than like multiples and many's, and starts to tessellate. So as you can see, the fractaling off into that part of that having the displacement of at any rate, because it could be slow too. But like in my case, sometimes it's a little bit quicker, sometimes it's a lot more drawn out. So that's one big reason they're studying me at Harvard and MSU, and the CIA and FBI are also just like trace linked on all of this feed most of the time on a nominal level. You could basically be a bigger interest in that achievement, basically. So if you get through the portaling, you end up on the other side, and you look pretty dang good because you already did everything you were supposed to do, and somebody accidentally just put you at the bar of spiritual court somewhere where you were fine, and it weirdly has to take you back down to limbo, and then you slowly start to evaporate out of it in one way or another as the rest of your sacrificial body deteriorates along the metaphysical and then the actual physical end, where you basically have this part between your three-dimensionality and your five-dimensionality. And the paraconomy line, somebody said, let's give them this one. So clearly on the ESP here at 8:58 p.m., January 1/12/2025, you could basically enter into the intellectual property of what is and isn't being discovered by anthropological findings, and how that information is being applied here at PARACONOMY INC. And basically, what you guys can basically have is as conversation fodder, excuse me, Freudian slip. Speaking of Freudian slip, oh, stinky cheese man time. But yeah, I digress. We know more, we do more. And so, because that's going on, all your taxpayers' money gets written off and put straight into the military budget to deconstruct and reverse engineer some of this bioengineering that the government has released as accurate evidence of what it is that I'm currently experiencing as an alien human hybrid and how that works and how deep this RNA DNA split go. My theory is they're doing a couple of things. One of my favorites here is that they're flying alien technology over humans with like helicopters and planes, and it's altering our DNA, and we're slowly evolving, and you get things like this phenomenon with Neuralink, and you can just use a Neuralink without actually getting a Neuralink. So like if that's all we've been missing, and like it's just an amount of like going back through the portal and using catalysts like psychedelics to open up this enigmatic displacement, it gives us a little bit of an insight of what could be going on during these more sacral and very, very like intimate realms of existence and studying. Something that a lot of my roots in Buddhism and Christianity have been able to open and kind of defrag itself so that we can kind of get a better signal flow from source energy to the composite. And that's a huge part of getting signal at the end of your signal chain when getting some light in on the subject. So I'd like to invite you guys to hit that like button, hit that share button, subscribe. It's 9 p.m. over here. I'm going to give you guys a short one here, and I'm going to give you guys a nice little sign off. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today with PARACONOMY Inc., Professor Fun 101, and the Pervert Murderer signing out. I love you guys. You guys are great. Stay classy and don't stop learning. Everybody now. Merry Pervert Murderers! Oh, ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, guys. Happy